After a trial run at Sakhir 2020, George Russell has finally been promoted to the big seat at Mercedes beside Lewis Hamilton, where he's replaced the outgoing Valtteri Bottas. All eyes were turned to see how he would cope with the pressure of being Hamilton's teammate and how he would perform, and it's safe to say that Russell has exceeded expectations on every front. At the moment, Russell has a 10-point lead over his teammate, but there was a time when this margin was far higher. It's true that not all of it is due only to performance. Hamilton had a lot of terrible luck during the races, but considering that this is Russell's first season competing at the highest level and that he's up against a 7-time world champion, he has done excellently, and he has been absolutely amazing. The fact that the two teammates appear to have a very happy working relationship, both on and off the track, and have performed, for the most part, consistently pretty well, is really encouraging for Mercedes. But the bad news is that this friendship could not survive in the future when Mercedes returns to the top. When compared to Lewis Hamilton, George Russell's natural speed stands out as particularly impressive, and this is something that should give Mercedes reason for optimism. The Mercedes driver did not display the lower ceiling that became apparent in 2017 when Valtteri Bottas took over driving duties alongside Lewis Hamilton. On the other hand, George Russell has been really amazing throughout the whole journey. During the course of this season, he's completed every race within the top 5 of the overall standings. In addition to this, he competes extremely favorably against Lewis Hamilton as well. Having said that, if we had to compare the two drivers' performances across the first half of the season as a whole, we should still consider Lewis Hamilton to be the faster of the two drivers, especially considering how he's reversed his destiny in the previous 5 races. However, George Russell is not too far behind, and maybe more crucially, this is just his first year competing in a Mercedes, which is a front-running bulldozer. Having a complete season under his belt will allow him to fully develop his strength and improve his performance. Considering how competitive he is right now versus Lewis Hamilton, it won't be surprising if the teenager takes things up a level next season as well. When looking ahead to the upcoming season, is there a chance that George Russell will be able to compete with, or possibly surpass, Lewis Hamilton more frequently? When one considers the groundwork that he's laid, it won't come as much of a surprise at all. At the moment, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton share the title as the most highly compensated driver on the Formula One grid. Given that the Mercedes driver has won the World Championship an astounding 7 times, it's difficult to argue that he should not deserve such a high salary. There are millions of people that follow the driver all over the world, and each and every one of them adhere to him in an almost fanatical manner. Having said that, the awards and followers could add to the market value, but they would not add to the lap time on the track. Even if Toto Wolff has a fantastic connection with Lewis Hamilton and wants to sign him for a few more years, he'll not be able to justify giving him the type of money that the F1 icon commands if he wants to keep him on the team. Especially if George Russell is sitting next to Lewis Hamilton in the opposite cockpit at a quarter of Hamilton's salary, yet still producing similar performance. Toto Wolff is fully aware that the relationship between Lewis Hamilton and George Russell as teammates can change if and when they compete for the highest stakes in Formula One. As reported by Planet F1, Toto Wolff said of the relationship between the two, "I think the biggest opponent for George and Lewis was the car, not the teammate or other drivers. And that was certainly advantageous in some respects." He elaborated, "They used different solutions and setups, even a lot on some occasions, with the aim of exchanging impressions and useful information to come out of the situation we experienced. If we jog our memory to the pre-2021 F1 season, even then the previous contract negotiations went on for far too long between Hamilton and Mercedes. This time around, though, the team has a trump card in George Russell that it could use against Lewis Hamilton, and might even opt not to extend the contract with him. Having said that, Mercedes could be giving birth to another Rosberg-Hamilton rivalry. But Wolff thinks that if people respect each other fundamentally, then rivalries will not get out of hand. Mercedes and Toto Wolff are both well-versed in the past. At the beginning of the season, Hamilton was falling behind Russell, but he was able to maintain his temper because he was not competing for any race victories or other significant milestones. If Mercedes was a leader and Russell had notched up a 7-race victory streak against Hamilton, then we wouldn't have looked at him being as polite with the rookie driver as we do now. Over the course of the previous several races, Mercedes has made substantial progress. The team's overall performance is showing signs of improvement, and they're inching their way closer and closer to the lead. There is a possibility that a collision may occur, similar to what occurred during the rivalry between Rosberg and Hamilton, despite the fact that the stakes are high and both drivers would be competing for the same track area. This was maybe one of the reasons why Mercedes chose a more friendly driver to replace Nico Rosberg, Valtteri Bottas. Tensions are set to reach a boiling point if Mercedes is able to develop a vehicle that is competitive for the following season, and if Hamilton and Russell are both competing for victories each weekend. At this point, the squad may need to decide between Hamilton and Russell as their starting quarterback. Hamilton is a sports legend, but he is also approaching 40 years old, rather than 30. On the other hand, George Russell is a promising young racer who has shown himself worthy by competing against one of the top talents on the grid and without losing out to him. He is among the younger drivers who has demonstrated the most potential so far. With Mercedes looking to part ways with Hamilton, it's hard to imagine him trying to knock on the door of any other team on the grid. In the end, the British driver could find himself in a situation where there would be no option for him but to retire from the sport. Wolff concedes that it's natural to have some tension at the highest stakes. When the objectives become races and championships, I'll be able to tell you whether the respect I see today between the two will prove to be a predominant factor. He continued, saying, "When playing for the highest stakes, I think it's natural to have some tension, but if people fundamentally respect and esteem each other, then it will never go too far." Mercedes is not yet at the stage where the stakes are the highest, yet as Wolff has stated, they desire to battle for victories before the end of the season. We are so glad to have you here with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.